And action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 237. It is 16th of February. It is not Monday, it's Friday. Oh my God. But that's because we're recording this from typically we record this on Mondays, so that's why I'm so confused. But next week is a vacation period, winter holidays in Finland, so we're not going to do work in here. What about you? You are working actually next week, right?
Well, I'm working, so also kids are also off here, but
Yeah.
I'm working. I'm not taking the time off because I'm gonna take time off in the summer.
Yeah, I try to do that as well. So, and it's one of these cultural differences between US and Europe, right? So the US is always laughing, hey, Europe is always out like 3 weeks in the summer. Yeah, have a look on your holidays period. So just saying. So
Thanksgiving,
3 weeks
Christmas.
Exactly.
Also, discretionary time off.
Yeah. And apparently Monday is some sort of public holiday as well in US. Not that there's nothing wrong. It's good to have those vacations and all of good, but it's always the
image perceptions and
exactly. So
it's good. If anything else, it's good that people take time off because they
absolutely 100%
they prioritize health. They
Correct.
should definitely do that. And
yes.
As long as you do your work, be my guest. Take your time off.
Yep. And I think that's the I don't know why are we going this deeply on this topic, but still. So, no, but I'm thinking the you said what was the word? What you said? You can have vacation as much as you
discretionary
want, as long as it works. With the company. Off. Yeah. So which works in US. Obviously in Europe we don't have that because of the labor laws are a bit different based on the country. So
I think I had it in my past job. So that was in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. And
we chose not to do it at Microsoft. Maybe let's
exactly
that way.
Exactly. And if you're doing a good job, if you're working, of course, everybody should be looking into how many hours they're putting in and then balancing things out as well. So it is a two-way street. So absolutely. Well, anyway, so that's the reason why we're doing this on Friday, and we just recorded the session and the interview this week, which is
Sharon Sumner.
Yes, Sharon is from UK, originally more on the migration side. Well, the migration company, which she has created, and we talked a lot about the Copilot and the impact of that and all of that, right?
I am surprised because your video froze and you were gone for like 10 seconds. I was like, are you still here?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm always here.
I have no idea what you said. Yes, it was yes.
Okay, man. Let's jump on that interview, and then we'll come back on the closing topics after that. Excellent, and thank you, Sharon, for joining us on the PnP Weekly Show. Good to have you here. Let's start with simple basics. Who are you and what do you do for a living?
Okay, I'm Sharon Sumner. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director for the UK, also an MVP on the Biz App side of things, and I run my own solution provider for Microsoft called Business Cloud Integration, which has the lovely Casper 365 product.
That was already a lot to tackle into. So what is a regional director? Let's start with that. So let's not assume that everybody knows what it is. So you work for Microsoft then? Because that was my first initial reaction when I heard about that one first time many years ago.
Yeah, that's everybody's first question. It's like, oh, you share an office with Satya? Nope.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Well, he comes to UK once in a while.
It's more of so where the MVP program is a technical representation on Microsoft's behalf, the regional director is more commercially aligned. So it's just a reflection of the fact that you're giving enterprise feedback back to Microsoft, and you're kind of aligned to some of the product groups there, and also that you can kind of talk across the whole cloud tool set, not just the Microsoft tools. So it's kind of a commercial cloud specialism rather than a particular niche, like the MVPs are very, very technical type of qualification. So really, it just means that I talk to Microsoft a lot, and hopefully they listen.
Here we are.
Do they listen? Do they listen? Are we recording? Yes, we are. Okay. Well, there's obviously there's always feedback which can be taken into account, and then there's feedback which we cannot yet address. So that's the challenge always on these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important that you do listen. But at the end of the day, there's more information coming out of Microsoft, especially during these busy times, right? As we go into the Copilot sphere, whatever we want to call it, there's loads of information coming out, and it's important that it's understood in the right way, in the way that it's intended. So yeah, I do think it's an important program. It's my first year in there, and kind of still finding my feet.
Yep. Yeah. Well, what about your background? How did it get to be regional director? Wow. What did you do before somebody said that you're regional director?
So I found this thing called SharePoint.
Everybody has a SharePoint background. Why?
I've been following you for as long as you've been about, Vesa.
That's scary, I guess.
Oh no, behind you, Vesa.
It's the reason why I'm SharePoint Sharon on LinkedIn. I've been in SharePoint since about 2007. In anger, which is like way later than you guys came into it. But we've certainly been on the PnP track since its inception. We were early contributors to the PnP program, giving you feedback, giving you fixes, and helping to build that out, because we saw that as a massive potential for the SharePoint world. SharePoint's kind of gone through a lovely little evolution, let's call it, such that it's popular, it's not popular, it's popular, it's not popular, and I'm absolutely loving the resurgence of SharePoint as the new home for Copilot data. Right, there's meaning that a lot more enterprise conversations about migrating data into SharePoint, which is kind of where I live. So I come from a business process automation background, quality, those kind of things. So SharePoint is a natural win because of workflows, because of making life easier. And then, of course, the Power Platform because, you took workflow away. And we had to find a way.
Well, it's still there, kind of, but it's going to go away completely soon. Yes.
But nobody uses it on purpose.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
But yeah, so the Power Platform got really great. And again, that was another kind of one of those moments of Microsoft where we had a massive resurgence and interest in workflow and business process automation. And just as things start to die off, there we come again with Copilot, right? Yes. Obviously, I'm heavily into AI, and I'm expected to go and give AI keynotes and stuff to the commercial world. And I find that fascinating. Like I say, that we've come full circle, and it's like, let's put our data in SharePoint again.
But that's even a relatively new thing, because you had some of the insights what how we're positioning things, and yes, we're saying that put your SharePoint data in SharePoint. But what do you mean with SharePoint now being back, and what does that mean for those who are like, no, SharePoint is for intranets and portals, and nobody does those anymore?
No,
what do you mean with?
Okay, I'll take offence for the whole of Microsoft.
No. You're saying.
Okay, so let's be fair. SharePoint is not a relational database, but it's also not an intranet. It's in the middle. It does the whole records management and document management for an organization. So if you want to leverage a vector database of data that you gathered over the years, pointing to SharePoint is the ideal place to be, right? Because it's behind Teams, it's behind OneDrive, and SharePoint also has its own presence there too. But we kind of got to this point a little while ago where it disappeared into the service layer. So it became kind of documents behind SharePoint, or rather behind Teams or behind OneDrive, and SharePoint didn't really have a presence. I think, for me, the Copilot conversation is bringing SharePoint back to the front again as a visible data store. I was going to say a pretty file share, but let's face it, it's never really been that, has it? But it's really useful in terms of storage of data. So now we're having better conversations about records management and how it fits in. So my company is called Business Cloud Integration for a very specific purpose. My strong belief is that the power that Microsoft have in its product set is that integration piece. Yeah. So bringing everything together, not just as a layer, but then also as a tool, it really is super powerful for enterprise data. And I'm still a big fan.
You mentioned a few times Copilot, the big C word. What's your take on the whole wave of AI and productivity and GPTs? How do you see that change the way we collaborate?
Okay, so I know everybody gives Microsoft grief about calling everything Copilot, but I actually think it's a really sensible move, because what we did is we took AI out of the word, right? So artificial intelligence is one thing. Copilot is another. So Copilot is meant to be your helper, not your intelligence. So it kind of removes that conversation of I expect it to write everything for me from scratch, right? It's meant to assist. It's meant to speed. It's meant to provide productivity. It's not meant to replace everybody. All of this. You won't lose your job to AI. You'll lose your job to somebody who's leveraging AI or Copilot in this case. So
that's a great quote. That is a really great quote. So.
But my mantra has always been getting to value faster, right? Whether it's with SharePoint or with Flow or with business process automation. So to me, a Copilot, a little assistant sitting next to you that you can go, what is the current legal legislation on blah, right? And they actually can give you a clue. That kind of speed is akin to, those of us that are old enough to remember, when Google first came along, and everybody was searching with I put in the word socks and I didn't get a decent result back, and we all had to learn how to search, right?
Yeah.
And then we all got really efficient at searching. It's the same thing. We're now learning to use Copilot in that same way. And all it does is exactly what Google did. It brought you back a bunch of results that speeded up your route to information. So that's what Copilot's doing. So from a collaboration point of view, it should mean that we spend less time asking each other silly questions, because we've got our little assistant there that can go and find, where did we put that? Where is that repository, right?
There is no stupid question. There's only stupid people. So just saying.
You said that for me.
Sorry, bad joke.
But of course, SharePoint's going in a new direction, and a direction that really is going to help. So for me, the exciting bit about SharePoint coming up is probably SharePoint embedded, right? So being able to, the amount of times that we've needed to have a CRUD relationship with SharePoint to have that proper read write back to an application is insane. So putting that layer in as an actual layer and defining it, really like that. Really like where that's going.
Let's come back on SharePoint embedded in a second, but I want to come back on a bit about that Copilot and the helper and an assistant. How would you explain, for more as a, let's say, consumer side person who's like Microsoft, we have Siri, we have Amazon, what are those Amazon assistants? So
Alexa.
There's nothing new, Alexa, there's nothing, but Microsoft is finally catching up, and then whatever reason now Microsoft is a $3 trillion company, I don't get it. So what's the big deal with this? Because if you think about Alexa or Siri, those are exactly the similar kind of helpers. What's the difference from your words? So.
They're really not, though. And I'm tempted to turn her off because Google is sitting right there and she'll answer.
Exactly.
Right.
You just called me like 5 times. What do you want?
But when you ask a question, it's kind of a yes/no search result answer, right? And that's not what Copilot is. So Copilot is knowledge assimilation. So imagine you had access to every book that's ever been written on a topic. It can give you an intelligent answer to a question rather than go read this book. Here's a good author. Here are some search results, right? So it's actually taking you a step further towards the answer than you had with the older technologies that kind of need to catch up. Because I mean, we have the G lady, as we call her, all around the house, right? And I'm already quite frustrated that I can't ask the questions that I want to ask because I've got used to using Copilot. Yep. So again, to me, it's about speed. When you can get a sales inquiry in and you can write a 3-page proposal back to that sales inquiry within an hour because you've got a virtual assistant, it's a very different, what's the weather like today? It's a very different experience between those two platforms. One gives you getting to value faster and business value and, has total commercial merit. One is, I could have used a window.
A gimmick.
Right.
A gadget, right? Yeah.
And it is, well, every now and then I have this interesting discussion because obviously people don't, if you're a consumer side person and you're not working within the enterprises and Microsoft products, you have no idea what Microsoft does, because it's like, well, you have the Xbox and then you have the Surface things and then I don't know what else, but
Bing.
for whatever reason, people, and Bing, and nobody uses Bing, right? So, but it is that kind of unless you are within the enterprise world, you don't necessarily understand the whole enterprise business models and how much money is actually involved in there.
Yeah, and I think taking that as an excellent lead-in, Vesa, I think that's why user groups started to exist, right?
Yes.
Because it's that layer of we're not all super techie and we're not all just there to geek out about the technology, but actually to everybody in the business, come along and talk to us about, this is what I really liked with the Power Platform. So I started the Cambridge Power Platform user group, God, it must be 5 years ago now. Because what I found is when you get people together that talk about technology, you get better feedback to the providers of the technology, the whole thing just escalates, right?
Yep.
So it develops, I mean, Copilot doesn't need any help in that way, it's developing at the speed of light, right? But the more feedback we can get from business, we can get from consumers, the more everybody's talking about using a tool, the more it progresses. And that's the really exciting stuff for me. That's why I spend so long in the community, because it's inspirational. That, for me, that's where innovation comes from.
Yep, and that's the original roots of SharePoint Saturdays. Again, well, SharePoint being the, it was the product which then exploded to be Cajillion products. It was also the product which had the first enterprise user groups, SharePoint Saturdays, which no longer exists, which is understandable because there's so many other products and services. But I think that was still the fundamental piece of that growth, was that somebody started organizing that, hey, let's just have these get-togethers and then not just listen what Microsoft tells us what is shiny and what's not, but rather focus on the real-world experiences. And that's a super important thing.
Yeah, and I think, so one of the initiatives that I've been involved in with Microsoft is the Microsoft Global Community Initiative, which is actually trying to resurge that single brand of getting together. So it's collab days. And I really like the concept of that, because SharePoint Saturdays was a great movement, right? We used to all kind of get together in our spare time. And it wasn't just devs geeking out, although quite a bit of it was devs geeking out. But but then you need that balance, which is why it's important to have super technical MVPs and those of us that are out there saying, well, actually, that feature's fun, but when you put it all together, this is how a business can actually leverage it. So usually when I'm doing speaking sessions, it's about a solution that we've developed and why it's gone together that way and why you've made those technical choices. But at the end of the day, I try not to do just a little bit of something, because I think people need to see that big picture. And like you say, it's not always the technical team you want to talk to, it's the business team that have got the actual problem.
Yes.
You mentioned a few times the link, kind of like the value you get from Copilot for the business. And I guess a big part of that is, well, it's only as smart as the data it has the access to, right? And obviously, as a company, you probably don't do everything on Microsoft 365. You have some other applications that you use as well. How do you go about advising your customers? Like, how do they deal with ensuring that Copilot in their org has the access to the critical info that they need to really get the value out of it?
Or is it too early for that discussion?
No, absolutely isn't. And I kind of feel conflicted, having written a SharePoint migration tool. The answer is put everything in SharePoint.
Your SAP, your everything in SharePoint.
There if you need any help, right? So
payments, your HR, everything.
Yes. So no, it's
you wouldn't mind.
Talk about size limits. No, let's not. Okay. So first step is understand your data. So we've always had this thing where we've gone from unstructured to structured, right? And those conversations don't stop happening. We need all of the lovely layers of control and disposition and records management. But largely, when you're talking to an organization and you kind of get that, everybody's going to write the same article because they've all got the same information in the database, yeah? Well, so that's the power of the Copilot, right? Because as a business, so we've been going for 13 years as a business. That's a lot of data just in my business. When you're talking to some of these larger organizations, if you could it's a knowledge management expert's dream. If you could leverage the knowledge that's in an organization as well as the large language model that you're given with GPT X version, you have to edit that depending on when we're putting this out.
Which day is it today? So.
So if you had your own large language model that is your own knowledge together with that just makes you super powerful. That means that you can actually take your experience and leverage it without any effort at all. So it's just about making sure that those pockets of information are accessible to the tool, right? So that effectively a vector DB of your business is just like the most powerful version of your business from my point of view, because knowledge is power, right? What you've done previously informs how you move forward, and those that can get to value faster is because they've made mistakes, hit the walls, etc. That's why consultancy works, because it's not our first time, right?
Yeah.
So
and something what you just said there also, I'm processing this thought because this came just in my head. Is it fair to say also that Copilot actually is helping us to collect some of the hidden information within the organization? Because not that every single document what the organization produces is not in those centralized locations where we would traditionally go and read the documentation. Some of the documentation notes and all of that might be in somebody's OneDrive or somebody's individual team side, or some document over there, some document there. Now that we're search-based and semantic search-based, it doesn't matter where the information actually is being stored, because we're able to access that as long as we're asking the right questions. So the Copilot is aware,
and we've got the ACLs for it.
And we have the ACLs. Of course, the permission, super important thing to call out. Yes, of course, the permissions will impact on it. But as in, if there's a hidden knowledge hub, whatever we said, that somebody's adding notes to the Word documents for additional information, all of that is actually getting gathered by Copilot as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's about how much effort you put in as to what you want to get out of it. So if you want to take your entire code base and in the background have that in its own vector DB so that you can talk to your model about your own software, that's like better than any super user that you could have looking at it, right? But at the end of the day, it's about how much of that data you can leverage as to the effort that you put into it. But I think what Microsoft is doing now is making it frictionless, right? Making it easy to add all of those data sources into the model. It's just going to get more and more powerful. And that's why, so I do a lot of mentoring, and I've been talking this week, especially to some AI startups, and it's really exciting, and I can talk to them about what they're doing. We can talk about the commercial model for it. But one thing I have to say to them is be really careful, because Microsoft's not sitting there looking at Copilot going, yeah, well done. It's moving,
exactly.
It's moving at speed. So the moment that you develop something, chances are it's coming from many other directions. So any idea that you can have has probably already been had and is probably already in development. But that's what makes it exciting, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Speaking of which, if you look at let's say the recent months and the coming months, what is one thing that excites you about this, the current M365 space and the Microsoft space?
Okay, so SharePoint embedded, pretty cool. Taking on board the M365 archive side of things, the whole understanding that data gets old and we still want to have it in SharePoint, we still want to have it accessible, and we don't want to actually have to pick it up and move it, etc. We took all that time to structure it, but now let's continue to leverage it. I think there's some fantastic work going on there. I'm part of the content services partner group, and some fantastic conversations in there. That's where Syntax and all of that came from. And I think the evolution of search, knowledge, semantic search, right, is probably, people say you've been going on about SharePoint search for years, Sharon. It's the best thing ever, right? It's better than any other search, and it's about to get better. So I think it seems odd to be still saying search, but really it is.
Yeah.
There was a great video actually. But it's not a recent video. I think it was part of the build last year where they explained the difference between a keyword search and a semantic search. And it's basically the fact that you do not search based on the individual words. You base the search based on the association and dependencies within the words. So if it's a capital of France, then it will understand that you're asking, capital of the France. It doesn't search for capital
Berlin, right?
and France. Exactly. So it's much smarter. But even if you think about this from an end user perspective, it's like, well, of course it should work like that. Yeah, we get that. However, technology isn't like.
It only took us 2,000 years to get here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it seems isn't that kind of the point of technology, though, that it seems easy. That's when we kind of got there, really.
Yeah.
When it seems like, well, doesn't it always do that? And we'll get to that point, right?
Yes.
I can't remember a time before SharePoint, but wow, I bet that was hard.
Let's go back, way back.
Yeah, I'm not that, to be clear. So it is really different. It's different, those different starting points. So I think I can't even imagine where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years, but all of this will be so taken for granted, right?
Yeah.
It will be, well, of course I've got all the knowledge at my fingertips. Of course I have. But I really like one of the slides that I use in a deck when we're talking about Copilot and AI strategy for large organizations is actually teaching people how to do the prompt, but not all of this, there's millions of YouTubes about prompt engineering, etc. But the fact that it breaks down into what you're asking in a certain way, that learning to ask again, like I say, I think that's a super powerful tool. And we should learn to ask questions all the time. We should be teaching our kids that at school, right? Learn to think. Yeah. And I think this is closer to learning to think than just Google it, in my opinion.
True.
Yeah, and I think maybe another aspect of it is that, like, as a person, you might be wary to ask somebody else because you don't want to look stupid, silly, like you don't know that. Oh my God. Whereas here you have a robot, you can just ask anything and everything, and that's between you and that thing. So you can just go ahead and ask anything and everything. And if anything else, myself, I see like I'm more curious, like just asking things about random things. Like my kids are going to ask me about like, why is this that way? It's like, I don't know. Good idea. Let's ask. Yeah. And it's the most random things where in the past I'd be like, I don't know. And it's that. And
but
now
it's
you can
really
just ask.
It's not just that first bit, though, is it? It's not just passing you the knowledge. It ends up being an entire conversation. It literally is a collaboration tool. So you're saying back that, but what if it was pink and it was 10 foot high? Oh, in that case, you would need X, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you should consider Y. And then you can carry on the conversation. So it literally is collaboration right there.
Yeah. And I wonder if in our work we will have the kind of equivalent of Eli 5. Seriously, it's like my favorite, part of the prompt. Like you're asking about something complex, like I don't know, mechanical engineering, flights to the space and whatever. It's like, okay, Eli 5, like I don't know anything about it. I want to have an answer that I understand without having to get a PhD on the topic. Yeah, and basically
like a 5-year-old. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's the same thing in our work. Like if I look at like how many acronyms and terms we use internally, it's insane. Like you spend the whole days on it.
Yes.
I bet that it's exactly the same in every single business where if you are new or the company is really big and you're not all working on one and the same thing,
correct.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Because
all like abbreviations and
exactly. Because on one hand, abbreviations and internal terms empower you to go fast because you kind of have the agreement. You have the report. But if you're new and you are not a part of that, well, then you're lost. So it's either everything or nothing. And here, I think that is really a great thing for enablement.
True.
Yeah, and that goes from the simple to the complex, right? So all the way through from what does an RFP look like in our organization to, start me a presentation using the company's theme or whatever it is. That's where we want to get to. And I know we get some criticisms of, PowerPoint can't do this yet and can't do that yet. The key word is yet. Right? We're working on it. This is rolling out to everybody. You are going to be amazed at the speed this just picks up because we'll get the feedback. And those, then, like I say, they're not just sitting there.
Yeah,
There's definitely.
yeah, and I think you mentioned you mentioned an interesting point, right? At some point you said that it's hard to say where we'll be in 5 years, and I think a great sign of that is if I look, for example, at my kids, things that they don't understand, like what do you mean? Like you would have to go to a place to rent a movie, like they go to Netflix and it's on and they have it immediately now, and simple things like that. It's like, huh. So basically things that are natural to them, and you're like, well, it wasn't always like that.
Yep.
What are the other things around us that are, not super obvious? These are probably the likely things that will change and will become just, effortless, as you said.
It is amazing the things that will disappear quickly. You kind of, like you say, you don't even know what they are at the minute. But when we get to tech that is not a great big headset for getting into a virtual world, when we get so that it is all super easy and kind of built in, and maybe it's, I don't know, Elon's trying to
it's this
thing, right?
Wow. Brain implants, I don't know, not quite bought into that.
I'm a big Tesla fan, so go steady. But the point is that all of that it's transitionary, right? It's just how we get there, and it's the bit that just gets completely forgotten. That great big chunky phone that we used to have. We don't care about that anymore.
The first mobile phone, which was basically a case you would lug around,
Or even a newer thing. I was doing a quick video earlier today, which I need to redo, as I realized that I did. But anyway, separate thing for Teams Nation next week. For it, like 2 to 3 minutes. What does Teams mean for you, and how does it help in the doing things? Teams didn't exist. Well, it's barely existed 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good example, actually. I shall be moderating on Teams Nation. That's a fantastic event.
There we go.
But nice plug. But the fact that we have Teams, and the fact that this, I meet with all of my clients virtually now. I very rarely go and meet in person. And I can understand why you don't, Vesa. I've seen your videos of you walking the dogs in the snow. It's going to be difficult to get there on time, right? But this is just accepted now. So it's not, even 5 years ago, this was not cool to be having all of your conversations this way. It would just be expected that you would meet or be in the office. And we've transitioned really quickly out of that. I don't have any of my team who work in an office anymore. We're all remote. We wanted to open the office back up and nobody came,
Why would you have enough people? Well, as I was, if the offices will not go the same way, where in the past everybody had a horse and only the selected few had a car. Now is the same thing. Like everybody works at home, and only the selected few will have an office. Yeah, because you can, because you want to have it.
Exactly.
You have to have it.
It's an exclusive.
Yes, it's basically a lounge you meet.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Well, I think that's what they are nowadays. More for once in a while get together, have that connection. I have to say, as I was writing down some of the notes for the Teams Nation quick intro thing, in like a few minutes video thing, and then I started thinking that I seriously was working remotely since in engineering since 2016, so way before pandemic, way before Teams was even announced, and it was completely unheard of to have meetings where you have a remote connectivity details. So the meetings were just, we're going to meet up. And then what I did was always like whatever we were using, Lync. I think Lync was the thing what we were using for chatting. It's like, hey, can anybody call me from that, the black box within the table so that I could at least listen. But think about the inclusiveness and how the world changed so that the location doesn't matter anymore. And now every single meeting invite in Microsoft has Teams invite on it. Even though people are sitting in meeting rooms, they actually open up their computers so that they're seeing as an individual person within the feed. And it doesn't matter, are you home, who's sick, or if your kids are sick, and you can join. Or you're joining from the other side of the world. So
I still think there's a feature missing. I adored the fact that I could jiggle your window when we were
in Messenger. Yes.
Like, hey, people, pay attention.
Exactly. I want that back. People go on about
that would be fun.
I want to jiggle somebody's window.
How about you're able to shake the chair?
Yeah. Small electric shocks when they're not performing.
Yeah. No. No.
That's going to.
Waldek, no.
Why not? Let's see. What's your goal? To have somebody pay attention. Like if my screen shakes and I'm not looking at my screen.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Anyway.
Sit on it.
But I do have one more, on all of this productivity and the fact that we're able to work remotely from home and everything else. I do have a one really important request, and I guess we can agree on this call and that one. Can we please go to a one time zone within the world? It would be so much easier. And my time zone, obviously, mine.
No, mine.
I mean,
I think
the world is flat, right? So what's the problem exactly?
Somebody cut him off.
I'm in a tunnel. Sorry, can I hear you?
Yeah, no, I do agree. It's really difficult. Time zones are difficult, but I think we should work that out because we've solved so many other way more complex problems than that, right?
Sure. And of course, I'm coming back on the Copilot and just references, and Waldek is a good representative. His manager is sitting in Australia, and there's no overlapping times. But again, those meetings, the Copilot, just yesterday there was chiller meetings happening like 2 a.m. in the morning in my time, and I can, in the morning, I'll take the coffee, put the speed in 2x or 1.8x, and then basically give me the summary, and then I can jump between the recap and the videos and everything else, and then Copilot gives me also, hey, these are the things what were great. So
the only thing there that would be really great is to be able to drop a comment at a point in time. I want to react to this thing.
Sure.
Fragment of a call, I'm reacting to that thing, as opposed to you react on something and then somebody's like, we said what, and then they need to get to read
the historical thing.
Watch,
Now we need a rules engine. If somebody mentions Waldek, then interject with this comment, right?
Yes. Yes. What was the time? The timestamp.
Nice.
Good. I guess from a timing perspective, we need to start closing up. This is sad because again, we could go on and on and on. And this is really good discussion. It's awesome to have a new perspectives, really not new, but fresh perspective. What am I saying?
I have no idea where you're going with this. These are great perspectives, and they are new. So I have no idea. Like, stop digging.
I'm so new on this hosting thing and doing this thing, so I forgive me.
It's okay. We forgive you.
Thank you, Waldek. but anyway, Sharon, anything interesting? What are you working this week or next week? Anything? Obviously, we're recording this on Friday, so hopefully I'm not working too much anymore today. But still, anything interesting? What you can talk about it? What's in your table? So.
Got a fair bit of mentoring going on at the minute for these AI startups. That's always fun to do. Learning about other people's businesses is always a bit of a passion of mine. Work-wise, what are we doing? We're doing a Microsoft SharePoint provisioning project for about 80,000 sites, moving about 16 million documents next week, and we've got a managed migration product, so it's not an end user product. You have to kind of know what you're doing because SharePoint can be tricky like that. You know that.
Trust me, I know.
We've got some big migrations going on at the moment, so all out of hours and fully monitored and all of that kind of stuff. So, some nice shifts.
On that, I have to ask because we didn't really drill into the migration thing as well. How do you see the migration? Are we midway through? Are we 1/3 through? What is your kind of a feeling on? Are you seeing more and more demand? Where are we within this bigger scale?
Two conversations there. One is migrating to the cloud, right? Which I think we're hopefully in the end game. Most organizations appear to be at least cloud side, whether that is on-prem in the cloud, so they just shifted the tin, virtualized it. But then in terms of migration, for example, into SharePoint, we deliberately didn't write a migration tool for the longest time because we were of that opinion of, well, everybody must have moved by now. And then you kind of realize it never stops, right? There will always be pockets of data to come in. There will always be people that took it out, that want to bring it back in again. And, we can take it out of SharePoint if we want to, but we don't.
Sure.
We don't like to. But there will always be. SQL database was a fun one. A SQL database with loads of files that aren't called sensible things that all need to be related back, and the transformation layer takes it from something that was useful in an app to something that's useful in Office 365. There are always going to be projects like that. So I don't think migration ever stops.
Never. So in other words, you will work on the tool or script eventually, after all. No comment.
Yeah.
Next.
Well, Waldek, what's on your table next week?
Next week. Let me have a look at it. So next week, I am presenting on a community call.
You are.
I will be presenting about a Microsoft Graph connector that shows you how to ingest the community samples that we've got in the community, so that you can easily find them whenever you need an example to show something to customer or to colleagues. So that will be one. Other than that, what else? We're doing some work on developer proxy, so you can expect some more features around that, and basically be able to more easily test your apps, because nobody likes to write tests, and yet also nobody likes to be called at home when things break in production. So you cannot have them both. So we kind of try to what if we can give you a middle ground with little minimal effort, almost none, but just a little bit, so that you can get ahead of these things where basically you don't want your app to fail in production. So we're doing some work on that, and you can expect some more news around that soon. What about you, Vesa? You will be away.
I will be away. Yes, I'm enjoying few days off. I might be in community calls, but that's a separate thing, right? So because hobbies, we don't count them to be work. So it's complicated, but it's actually anyway gives a lot of freedom on the daytime to do something else. So try to spend more times with the dogs. There's one over there somewhere behind of the. So, yes.
Oh, dogs! I thought dogs. You're going to work to work dogs. What? You're working on dogs? What are you going to write about?
Not with the C, with the G.
Yeah, exactly. Dogs, wolf.
No, I didn't actually have any time off during the holiday season, except for the the public holidays, and then that means that it's been a pretty long time since there've been real vacations. So it's good to actually have some time off, so which is good. So
awesome.
Cool. And pretty soon MVP Summit is coming. That's looking forward to that one, and talking about the Redmond and all of that. But that's within a few weeks, right? So will you be there, Sharon? Just out of curiosity.
I'm not going to be there this year, unfortunately.
Yep.
Hopefully hoping to get there next year. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, I guess that's it for now. So thank you, Sharon, for joining on the PnP Weekly episode, whatever this is. I have no
137.
Season 8, episode 16. I have no idea. But it's good to have you on the show. We'll definitely get you back on the show somewhere in the future. It's always good to have a discussion and catching up on them. And we'll, within 6 months, having a discussion on, okay, so what did we predict it, and then where we are, and be like, oh my God. So that should be good. Thank you, Waldek. And I guess we'll close up with Waldek, but we're not going to do articles this week because we're recording this advance. But
oh my God! And I prepared all the articles now.
But thank you, Sharon. Really cool to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon, one more time for the great discussion. Good to catch up. And for those who might be wondering, are we doing articles? The answer is no. We're not going to do articles this week because this is almost too close again on the previous setup. So we're going to then walk through the different articles and all of that within the following episode. We'll have more content, right?
Yes, which is in almost a week and a half.
Yes.
So go writing whatever you want to write, whatever you want to ship, and let us know. And then
using hashtag PnP Weekly if possible. We'll obviously scan through all of the other things. Something what I noticed actually related
the internet.
All of the internet. Something what I noticed, we see less and less people using hashtags, which is a pity, at least in X, which is some sort of a trend. I don't know what it is, but at least maybe
Yeah.
people are not. I don't know what's causing that. Please use hashtags so people can find what you're writing.
Help us to help you.
Exactly, and the other people to find your content as well. But I guess that's it. We went through the weekly articles. We had an awesome discussion with Sharon, and we captured.
We didn't go through the weekly articles.
Oh, sorry, the weekly happening. So that's, English is so hard. So.
Yes.
I need a vacation, please. No, all good, all good. So thank you for watching. Give us feedback, comments, all of that stuff in the video notes or otherwise. We're always interested on people's thoughts, and we'll be back with PnP Weekly within a week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.